After I've crossed the delivery point,
Yes.
am I going to be able to raise this child properly, right? But then, I mean, in Ghana, the cultural settings is the first week that all your family members have to come and visit. And I think another thing that shocked me was just the price of baby clothing and food. And I'm like, they are tiny. What are they eating?
Welcome to Tiny Tales,
where we explore the unique experience
that giving birth is to every woman.
We will hear the personal tales of women in Ghana who will take us on their journeys
to motherhood, from conception to birth, to the first 3 months after the baby is born.
This season is sponsored and co-hosted by Gaia Organic,
your plug for fresh, healthy organic food in Jawulu, Accra. My name is Lisa and I'll be your host. In this episode, I'll be talking to Ekua, the mother of Adobe, aged 20 months, and the story of not recognizing one's body during pregnancy and postpartum. Thank you for joining us, Ekua.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. So let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
Is Adobe, was she planned?
No, Adobe was not planned.
No?
We were actually trying not to conceive, but then family planning failed. Disappointed us. So
right.
Yeah. So yeah, Adobe is here now.
She's with us and we're happy.
Yes.
But how did you react then when you saw the positive line on the pregnancy test?
I cried.
You cried.
I cried. I wailed. I threw myself on the floor. I was like, ew, I'm not prepared for this. Right. I called my mom. She was excited. I was not. My husband was like, okay. Yeah. But then it was not planned. It was a shock, and it took a few months to settle and accept it. But yeah.
Why was it that you were reacting like that? Did you have some other plans that you wanted to?
Yeah. I just got married. I wanted to travel, do things with my husband for at least a year before I had a child, because once you have a child, your life changes, right? You can't return them without
There's no return policy.
Yes, exactly. Once they're here, right? And they change your life.
Yeah.
So I actually just wanted 1 year with my husband, right? So, we get to know each other. I mean, we never lived together, so get to know each other's living habits and things like that. And then she just showed up.
So how long after? So you got married, and then how long after did you become pregnant?
So we got married in January, and then Adobia came, I got pregnant, or I noticed I was pregnant in May. So it was 3 months period. I was but I think what didn't help was it was around the time that the COVID lockdown happened.
Yeah.
So we were stuck at home. And I mean, when you're stuck at home, what else are you going to do?
But just right. Then make babies, obviously.
Yeah.
So then, you spent the first couple of months just learning how to accept this.
Yes, she didn't make it easy. I mean, I was barely keeping food down and all that. I'm like, yo, in the first place, this was not planned. And then you're not even making things easy for me. You're making me throw up all the time. I could not enter my kitchen because all of a sudden there was this smell I just could not stand. And then I was craving all sorts of things. And I was like, I don't think cravings are supposed to start this early, but then they did. So yeah, it was a tough start. So I had to move to my parents' place. They're doctors, so.
You moved there for
a bit, yeah, for the first trimester, because it was either that or go to the hospital and be put on drip.
Because you simply weren't eating anything.
Yeah, I couldn't keep anything down, and I was very nauseous.
Okay.
So my mom gave me some anti-nausea drugs. Once I take it, and I vomit. So it's I just had to go and then stay with my mom for a bit. Yeah. Later on, we found out that I started my iron tablets too early, and that was what was causing me to throw up a lot. Because immediately I got pregnant, I found out I was pregnant. My dad started me on iron tablets, but then according to my doctor, I was supposed to have waited. I think 12 weeks, not 12 weeks, 4 weeks or so, a little advanced into the pregnancy before I start taking iron tablets. But I didn't know that.
So that's the first trimester. Then how was your second trimester? Because some people say the first trimester is often nausea, fatigue. Second trimester is supposed to be the easy one.
Yeah. So the vomiting continued to my 5th month.
Wow.
right? So it was really in the 6th month and in the 7th month that I actually started getting like the pregnancy glow. I think that like pregnancy was my best skincare routine because like all these spots on my face were gone. Yeah, so the 6th and the 7th month, that was fun, right? And
Okay.
my bump wasn't so big, so you wouldn't, if you didn't look at me closely, you wouldn't really know that I was pregnant unless you knew me, right, and had
Yeah.
seen me throughout the rest of the month. But generally, yeah, the 6th and 7th were fine. The eighth too was fine, but the first 5 months was not
Yeah.
pleasant at all.
No.
Yeah.
Were you aware that this was something that could happen?
Yes, I was, because I'd had friends who had gotten pregnant and had to carry a bucket with them all the time because they just kept throwing up like throughout the 9 months. So
Okay.
I knew that was a possibility, even though I had hoped I would not find myself in that situation.
Yeah.
So when I realized that I kept throwing up, I was like, oh my God, am I going to also be doing this for like the entire 9 months? But then luckily mine was self induced. So
You spend the first few months sort of coming into terms that this is going to happen to you. You're having a baby. Then after that, how was you? Did you start? Was it just happiness from there? Was it anxiousness or anything? What did you start feeling?
anxiety, a
Yeah.
lot of anxiety, because it was like now I was going to be responsible for someone else, all right, and I still felt I was a child. I mean, I'm still young, and then now I'm coming to be responsible for another person for like the next 18 years or 20 years or whenever they want to leave the house, right?
Right.
So it was a lot to take in. I don't know how that happened or whether it was me looking for that information, but all of a sudden I started seeing news of child abuse or babies being kidnapped, or
Oh.
so it increased my anxiety. Like, okay, if I'm in an Uber and then somebody kidnaps me, how am I going to escape with my baby and things like
Yeah.
that, right? But then I had a few friends who were like a good support system. So I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. And so they would pray with me, read scripture, like, pray over me, and that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at a point I had to like have it like sit down and talk to myself. I'm like, this baby's not going anywhere. Right. So it's either you accept it and then take better care of yourself so that you have a healthy baby, or you do not accept it and you might end up with even more complications. So
Yeah.
yes, that was.
I mean, I think that anxiety is something that a lot of moms can relate to because suddenly now you're not just responsible for yourself. And
Yeah.
I had a friend told me once that he had never been afraid of dying, really. Ever he never thought about it. But since he had a kid, he was always afraid that he was going to get killed in traffic. Or he
Yeah.
used to travel a lot, that the plane was going to come down or something because then his kid would be without his dad, like her dad. So that's something that came with having, and I think a lot of parents can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, when I had Adobe, like the first 3-4 months, I was scared to drive, to go anywhere alone with her, because then there was this irrational fear that maybe there will be an accident and then I'll die and Adobe is alone in the car and anybody can just take her, right?
Yeah.
So for a very long time, I would insist that my husband drives because I trust his driving and all of that. And I had to learn how to drive in my third trimester. And there was one time I blacked out while driving,
okay.
right? So it was the driving instructor who had to bring the car out from the ditch, right? We almost went into a ditch. So he had to steer. So like there was this fear that what if that happens again and then I'm alone with my daughter and things like that.
Yeah. So, but then you're getting to the end of your pregnancy, and how's your body feeling?
So I was beginning to get used to. So like I mean, the 6th and 7th month I told you was easy. So it's like there's this energy, like you can do things. You're feeling like I got this. I'm carrying a baby and I'm doing this. I'm like super mom and all of that, working. Then the 8th and especially the 9th month, it was like tired all over again, right? I never was scared about delivery or going to the labor. I always knew I'll go and come back, right? I had a lot of friends who were rather scared that they would not come back from delivery, but that was never a problem for me. My anxiety was whether I'd be a good mother,
So
right?
on the other side, yeah.
Yes. So after I've crossed the delivery point,
Yeah.
am I going to be able to raise this child properly, right? Bring it up in the fear of the Lord and all those things, like things that, when you've been raised as a child and then now you have to apply those principles and you're not too sure if you'll be able to transfer it, because really the baby is a young adult on its own, like another human being. They would have their own value systems and thinking. You don't want to tamper too much with their personality and all, but then you want them to understand that in life there are boundaries and things like that. My body had been acting funny, right? Apart from like the throwing up, like I mentioned to you in previous conversations, I'll take a plate to the kitchen and I feel like I've run like a marathon, right? I'll go use the washroom, I'll go pee, and then it's like all of a sudden I'm bloated, right? And I did not understand what the correlation was between peeing and bloating. And it wasn't like it was just like bloating, it was painful bloating, right? Okay. That was stressful. I think that was the most stressful part of pregnancy for me, dealing with my body and the changes.
Yeah, were you able to figure out? Wait, I guess you Googled it.
Yeah. And then there was this app I was using, What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was also very helpful. I would have wished I found an app that had like a Ghanaian setting.
Yeah.
Like something that was more like, it was curated to, like with Ghanaian content.
Yeah. I think we relate more to something that is within our context.
Yes.
Like, I mean, it's also why I think birth stories that it's good that we're presenting the ones that are here and not always the ones that are from everywhere else.
Yes.
I mean, I personally also relate to the ones when I listened to a lot when I was pregnant. I related to the ones that were in the context that I was in, because in the end, that's where I was going to be giving birth. And the same it's the same in any context really that is represented.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then you get to the birth, and I guess when was she born in terms of the due date?
So she was 37 weeks, 3 days.
Okay.
Right. I gave birth to her in Kolebu, and that particular week I was supposed to go and do was a CGT scan or something. But then anyone who has been to Kolebu knows that their processes are very bureaucratic and tedious. So I was like, God, I do not want to have to go for that scan. This baby has to come before then. So I was supposed to do the scan on a Wednesday and she came on a Sunday. So
she knew. She was like, Mom, I got you.
Yeah. I spoke to her as a young lady. You have to show up.
Right. And you started feeling the contractions at home?
Yes.
Or the water broke? How did it start for you?
So the day before, I had gone for a pizza party.
Okay.
And I wanted to pee, so I had to climb, like, I think, to the 4th floor. I had to use the stairs to the 4th floor. Right. So when I got home, I knew that, I was not feeling like... I'd already started having like Braxton Hicks, right? But then I just felt different. Like my back was a little achy, and then I went to bed and I woke up around 5 a.m. and I was very hungry. So my husband went to get me pizza because, I mean, when a pregnant woman tells you she's hungry, you have to go get the food.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then I got the first contraction. Usually with the Braxton Hicks, when you turn, it stops. But I turned and it wasn't stopping. And my doctor had told me to time it. He was like, if it lasts for 1 minute and then the next one hits at 5 minutes, I should know that it started, right? So I did that. I timed it and I realized that, okay, there was like the 5 minutes interval. Then I went to use the washroom and then I saw the mucus plug.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so my water did not break, actually. They had to break it for me. Yes, so that's how I knew labor had started.
So your mom was the one who was able... Did she deliver?
No, she did not. She did not, but she was the one there with me in the room. They do not allow husbands into the delivery rooms in Kolebu.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
but you were able to get your mom in with you?
Yeah, because she's a doctor. I did.
And how was it? Going through it? Was it a long delivery?
Well, you know how they say there are 3 stages of labor? The first stage was the longest, right? And I was told this because I'm like it was my first pregnancy.
So while you're dilating, so that's yes, exactly. While you slowly go through the process of getting from 0 to 10 centimeters. Yeah.
But then I don't know what Adobe was trying to do, right? Because in the morning it was like 1 minute, then 5 minutes. Like you wait 5 minutes, and then we went to the hospital and they said, okay, I've just dilated by 1 centimeter, right? And then they were like, okay, I can go home since I was in the area, and come back. So we went back in 6 hours, and then they checked and it was just 2 centimeters, right? So the doctor was like, do I want to do this like the long way, or do I want them to augment it? Because they did not even believe I was in labor. Like, I was
Okay.
just sitting there playing phone games, and like, it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't painful.
Right.
So they asked if I wanted to augment it, and I said, I mean, if it will make this process faster, why not? Right? Big mistake.
So you had the drip?
Yeah, so
Yes.
they augmented the labor, and then he had to force my cervix to 3 centimeters before he could augment. That was the weirdest thing about labor for me. Like, having different people put their hands down there, it was very uncomfortable. And then they'll ask you to just remove your dress. And it's like none of them are looking at you lastly or anything. It's just like a medical procedure. But I have not been in that situation before, so it was a little weird. So it helped having my mom around to say, okay, this is okay, this is not okay, and all of that. I didn't spend so much time in active labor though, like less than 5 minutes. I think I tried the first push. I didn't really know what I was supposed to do, but then they were like, okay, do another push. I did another push, and she came out. So yeah, I didn't spend so much, but I had a tear.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they had to stitch me up and all. Because I hadn't mentioned earlier on that I would want pain medication, and they had to augment my labor, they did not give me pain medication because they did not know when the baby will come.
Yeah.
They did not want any issues. So this is me in the second phase of labor thinking maybe I should get pain meds, and then my doctor saying, nah, don't give her pain meds. She's already like,
She's too far ahead.
yeah, she's too far ahead. So, but I think generally my labor story is not as dramatic as other. I've heard. I mean, in the hospital people were screaming and things like that, but I was not screaming. I was just like squeezing my mom's fingers and things like that. So, yeah.
And then Adobe was out on 2 pushes. She was out.
Yeah. 2
That's
pushes.
nice. And did you get her on your chest?
Yes. So I think we had to do like skin to skin. But that was also weird because it was like looking at a completely different human being, and then they're saying it's yours. I was like, so I was confused for a bit. They were like, your child. I was like, who is this? And they're like, your baby. I was like, oh yeah, my baby. And then I took her because it's like, it's one thing having her in your womb and then speaking to her without seeing her, and then now she's out.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a profound moment for me.
Yeah. Did you feel that connection right away with her?
No.
No.
Like, I guess it was like meeting a new person for the first time.
Yeah.
Right. It was, I think, after I'd spent a night with her, then yes, that connection came. I guess like I was still going through like the after effect of pregnancy. Like nobody told me, like I was having tremors and things like that. So I was vomiting and all of that. So I didn't really know. My mind wasn't
so much going on in your body. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like my entire family was there. So my mom was with the baby, my sister was with the baby, and the nurses were attending to me. My husband came to meet the baby and all. So like, yeah, I did not really spend as much time trying to bond with the baby until they had all left, and it was just me and the baby in the ward.
In the ward, yeah. I mean, that I also had the same feeling when Izzy had come out. I was just like, finally, like a relief.
Yeah.
I felt relief, and then I got her on my chest, and then after I had to give birth to the placenta, so it wasn't coming out immediately. So my husband had to take Izzy, and I was like, that's fine, just take her. I didn't have that connection in the beginning. I knew how to take care of her, but I didn't have that like
motherly.
It took a little while for me as well.
And that's one of the things that came as a surprise to me, because sometimes when I was going into like labor, people kept telling me 2 things. Oh, immediately you give birth to her, you forget the pain, the labor pain, and then just from the joy of seeing your daughter, and then there's this motherly connection, and none of that happened for me. I did not immediately forget the labor pain, and then I did not immediately feel the motherly pain, like the motherly connection.
Right.
But yeah, I did not have anyone making me feel guilty about that. Right. Like my mom was like, it's normal. You've just gone through like a whole
lot.
Yeah. Because really, the baby is a stranger.
Yeah, it is a stranger. Exactly. Yeah. It's fair enough that it takes a little while to figure that out.
Yeah. True.
And I mean, it's not something that we should feel guilty about, that we don't feel it right away. It can take a long time. It can take, some women can take 6 months to get that connection.
Exactly.
Then you got home with Adobe. How did you feel about taking this little bundle home and having to take care of her?
So by that time, I'd accepted that I was going to have a baby. right? So it's like, oh, I've always wanted a baby. Like I always liked babies, right? Now I have mine and I don't have to return her. And then 1 week afterwards, I wish I could return her, right? But I think my the work I do, like my career, you work into the night and sometimes you work overnight, right? So waking up in the night was not a struggle for me to breastfeed her. But I think, the times when like your husband is sleeping and then you are up and it's like, yo, wake up and be here with me, right? Like it feels like a lot is being taken from you and you wish other people were also like helping you or feeling the things you were feeling so that maybe they could empathize more. My husband was an amazing support during that time. Of course, there were frictions because I mean my hormones were all over the place, and so there are times he's just asking an innocent question and then I'll snap or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, the first few months, I wish I had, like on hindsight now, I wish I had left her to sleep so that I could get some sleep, right? Like if she's crying, she'll be fine, right? You don't need to be jumping like every second trying to see if she's okay. I mean, unless she is like terribly, like she's heating up or something. But if she's just like you finished feeding her, you've burped her, and you put her there, and now she wants attention, she's crying. I mean, a little crying will not kill her. Right? I wish I'd known that, right? Sometimes I'll wake up in the night and then I'll check to see if she's still breathing. I didn't know about like apnea and all of that. Like babies will stop breathing for a while and then they'll start. So like the first time it happened, I was like, yo, what's going on? Stop breathing. Right? And she started breathing. I was like, oh, okay. It's a normal thing.
Yeah.
Right? And then there was this thing they would do, like they'll just get frightened out of their sleep. I was like, the first time it happened, I was like, why did you have a nightmare? And I had to go and Google, do babies have nightmares and things like that? And then I was told that, oh, it's like a normal thing, like a reflex and all of that. So it was a learning process.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an easy one because I was still trying to figure out what was going on with my body. Because I thought once I had brought her out and then the placenta was out, everything was going to like go back to factory resets, like factory settings and all of that. But then none of that was happening. And it was like, yo.
What was happening with your body?
So I was bleeding, right? And then apparently it's normal. But I did not know. So I had to be wearing like pads and things for like, and sleeping with, Macintosh or things like, so that I don't stay in my bed for a bit. I had a tear, so I had to be doing like the sit bath, like morning, evening, and then there was like the whole constipation, like the 1 week not being able to poop because I had done like a vaginal delivery. No one told me about that. So my mom told me that if I know what's good for myself, I'll be taking mangoes and bananas so I don't get constipated. So that's what saved me. Like Adobe was not planned, but like maybe if I'd known all of these things, I don't know whether I want to do like the whole biological route or adopt or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all in all, it was worth it having Adobe.
Yeah, of course,
all
he's
worth it.
very cute.
Yeah, it's very cute.
And then I think the one thing that many moms, it's a topic of many moms, is breastfeeding.
Yes.
How was breastfeeding for you?
So it was relatively easy for me. I didn't have problems like with Adobe latching and all of that. I didn't use a nursing pillow, but then I had like pillows to prop her. I think there are two issues. One, I didn't know what engorgement was. I'd never heard of engorgement until it happened to me. I was just like on the third day. Then all of a sudden my breasts were rock hard. Like I could feel them filling up, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening to me? Right. So my mom had told me, oh, your milk could come, but I thought it was going to come in like a steady stream, like enough for the baby to drink. But then for it to just come like a rushing wave, and then like, and at that instant, my in-laws showed up. So I did not know what to do to myself. My baby was asleep, so she could not breastfeed. My in-laws were waiting for me in the hall, so I had to use like nursing, like these
Like the patches, the one you put in,
and I was leaking, and then I was, you have to be nice and kind, and sometimes I just wish somebody would tell people that, yo, when a woman gives birth, for the next 2 weeks, don't visit, don't show up, because she does, like, a lot of things happen within that 2 weeks, right? Just don't visit, don't show up. But then, I mean, in Ghana, the cultural settings is the first week that all your family members have to come and visit. So
and you're just in that first week, some people are still in pain. Some people have a lot of other things going on in their body. Some people are just like mentally or emotionally in a weird place. you and your partner are trying to figure out what it's like with a new baby. I mean, I didn't sleep the first week. I was so tired. Like when my nurse came to our house after about 5-6 days something, and she was like, "How are you doing, Lisa?" And I started crying because I was just like,
I'm
I was
tired.
so tired. Yes, I was so tired. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of talk about exactly that. When should you visit? And it's okay to say no to visits
Yeah.
in the first few weeks, because it really is a lot to take a baby home for the first time.
Exactly. And I think another thing that shocked me was just the price of baby clothing and food. And I'm like, they're tiny. What are they eating? Like, why would a tin of Cerelac be like twice the price of a takeaway pack of fried rice or something? Like, what are they eating? Do you get what I'm saying? It got easier. With budgeting and all of that. Yeah, I think that the journey has been interesting.
It is definitely a journey. I think that it is. And so what would you recommend a lady who's pregnant, and what would you have wished that you had known? Like all these things that we've talked about that you weren't aware of. What did you wish that you knew, or that was available to you? That
The fourth trimester.
Yeah.
That I think that's what takes a lot of people by surprise, because we hardly hear about it. Most of the time when people are talking about pregnancy, really most of the time it's about the labor, like the day you go and deliver. But they don't really tell you, like you hear something about their journey, but you don't really hear much about like what happens after that, right? You just hear, oh, but like you've gone to give birth and then you've come out safe, and you and your child have also come safely. But nobody tells you that, yo, after that, like at least for the 1 month after that, you're not going to know yourself. Right? You're not going to know yourself, and it's okay. Right? And then I'd also wished that somebody would have told me a little bit more about family planning. Right? So that those who are trying not to conceive and not find themselves in a position where like they have conceived, right?
I think what I'm really taking away from your story is the fact that we need to be educated on what happens to ourselves, and not just focus so much on that delivery. And I think the reason why we do that is obviously because of the pain and everything that we're trying to prepare for that. But as we prepare for that, we forget that there are other things to it too. And one of the things we often don't talk about is like breastfeeding afterwards.
Exactly.
How do you do that? Like, how does it actually work? I mean, we don't talk about it because we're like, everything stops at that once the baby's out. And everything is assumed that you figure it out.
Yeah, like it's not just the baby puts it, like you putting your nipple in the baby's mouth. There's a whole science to breastfeeding.
There's a whole science to it, and there's a whole journey to becoming a mom afterwards, and a dad for that matter as well.
Exactly.
So, but thank you very much, Ekua.
You're
I'm very
welcome.
happy, and thank you for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
I'm sure there were parts of Ekua's story that resonated with you. Perhaps you could see yourself in the bodily changes, or in the feeling of wishing that you had been better informed. The power of the personal story is that we all relate differently. We want to hear your thoughts and feedback, so please leave us a comment. Thank you, Ekua.
Sure.
And thank you to all of our viewers. This show is created and hosted by Tiny Reuses.